Judicial Service Commission issuing a statement today. It's now planning to hold its interviews of the 4 people nominated to the position of Chief Justice in February next year, 2 months from now. You'll know there's already been a long process over this. Now the JSC will only make a nomination to the President long after the interview process has actually begun. Well, the spokesperson for the Judicial Service Commission is Advocate Dali Mpofu. Dali, good afternoon to you and thanks for your time. I suppose the obvious place to start is why only in February? It's 2 whole months away.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes, as you correctly pointed out, look, in perspective, it's not such a long period. We know that some of the delays were caused by the fact that the President decided to open up the process to the public even earlier than usual, which has been seen as a positive step. But a couple of weeks ago, the President then announced his shortlist, and obviously he had to then write to the JSC, which has now met and determined the dates. Stephen, if you remember that we are dealing with 23 members of the JSC, including some of the most senior judges in the land, senior practitioners, senior academics, and so on. You can imagine how nightmarish it was to try and get at 4 or 5 days of the diaries of those people. Normally, in our normal sittings of the JSC, we schedule the dates 6 months ahead. We sit in April and we sit in October each year. So this is obviously a special sitting. So the dates, although they might look far, given also the season that we're in, are actually the earliest and the best days that we could obtain.
Is it possible to know how soon after the meeting you'll be able to make your recommendations to the President? I mean, it's one thing if, you know, at the end of it you have a meeting and within a week you send your nominations. It's another thing if it takes another month after that. And I realize it also depends on what people decide.
No, absolutely no. But I can safely say, without putting my neck on the block, that we would render the report to the President within days, not even a full week. Because once the process happens, we will do our deliberations immediately the next day. And there's no reason why the report should not then be forwarded to the President within another 2 days or so after that.
Okay. In the previous process, and this is all being done in a new way, so you're about to do what has been done before, even though it's the first time we've had 4 candidates. So there's a lot that's new about this process, but there was also this previous panel that had a sort of long list and whittled it down to a short list. They sent that to the President. He made his decision about who he would like to nominate. He sent these names to you. So the previous panel also had public consultation. They invited public comment. In the past, the JSC had done that. Are you doing that for what would, I suppose, be a second time this time around as well, or not?
Oh, certainly, yes. Our process is standard. So what we are doing, in short, is that by the 10th of December, the candidates must have filled up the standard questionnaire and forms that people fill up, any applicants for judgeship do. Once thereafter, we'll give a period of a month to the 10th of January for the public and interested parties to comment. And then it's the sitting, as you have mentioned, from the 1st to the 5th of February.
And there's no way you can sort of, I suppose, it's quite complicated in a way. Even though there's been a time of public comment, you can't really remove your time of public comment.
No, absolutely not, because, you know, we are guided by statutes and by our own guidelines and the Constitution. So irrespective, the process that the President embarked on is obviously a process that was within his powers to do, but we are guided by our normal procedures that we apply whenever there's a vacancy.
Okay, no, I mean, that does make sense. There's a technical question which could be quite important, but I think if memory serves, you have made a decision about this. As I understand it, the Judicial Service Commission is normally, the meetings are chaired by the Chief Justice. Now, there is no Chief Justice. That would normally mean in the past the Deputy Chief Justice, we remember Dr. Moseneke chairing the interview of Mogoeng, who then became Chief Justice Mogoeng. But this time around, one of the nominees is the Deputy Chief Justice. And I think if memory serves in the past, that means that the President of the Supreme Court of Appeal, hasn't always been termed the President, but the head of the Supreme Court of Appeal would do it. But she's, Judge Mandisa Myers, also a nominee So, Dali,
Absolutely.
is it going to be you? Would you like to invite me to come and do it for you? I'm available.
Yes, I think any South African in the end will end up there, Stephen. No, but you're quite right. It is that complicated. And that is the reason why in that line, as you were going down, the next person was then the acting president of the SCA, who also is the deputy president of the SCA, because the Act basically says that the JSC can choose any one of their number to chair. So the president of the deputy president of the SCA was the next most senior person.
Okay, that does make sense. We've seen a suggestion, and in a way, I think a suggestion that perhaps at some grounds, that some members of the Judicial Service Commission, maybe the Judicial Service Commission as a whole, but that's a very complicated statement to make, have been acting in a political way during one of the previous rounds of interviews, and as a result, the interview process was actually held again. Do you get a sense maybe after all of that, perhaps the legitimacy of the JSC is going to be under scrutiny during this process? Because it's also a bit more complicated in that we have 4 candidates for the position of Chief Justice, which we've also never had before. So there's quite a lot at play here.
No, indeed, Stephen, and it is as it should be. The JSC is one of the most important institutions in this democracy. And always it has to be contested terrain. People have to have their say. We must allow these things in a democracy, and it's all very well. But to say that the JSC is being political is almost like stating the obvious. The JSC, by design, includes members of the National Assembly, a large number of them from different parties, and those are politicians. So one cannot expect them not to be political. So if we wanted to depoliticize the process, I suppose we'll have to change the constitution. That having been said, we do have specific guidelines, and obviously one cannot stray beyond, for example, issues that deal with the suitability of a candidate. And that's why the importance of your earlier question about chairing is important. So the chairperson in all instances has to make sure that people are reined in at that level, as any chairperson would do. And you know that in the last 10, 12 months or so, we will be having our third chairperson. It was Justice Mkhweng, and then it was DCJ Zondo. Now it will be Pete, Deputy President. Everyone, obviously, as in any institution or a board, will bring their own style and their own way of making sure that the meeting stays focused on the relevant issues.
Advocate Dali Mpofu, I really appreciate the time. Thank you very much indeed. Spokesperson for the Judicial Service Commission.